Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex topics and turn information overload into insightful understanding. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the cinematic world of Christopher Nolan, a filmmaker known for his, well, mind-bending narratives and visually stunning storytelling.
Oh, it's a fantastic subject. Nolan's films really challenge you, don't they?
Yeah.
Make you think.
Mhm.
And for this deep dive, we've pulled from a really wide range of sources. Everything from deep critical analyses of his work to interviews where he actually reveals his own creative process, even going back to his early student films.
They absolutely do. So our mission today really is to explore what makes a Nolan movie tick. We're putting a special focus on his 2010 masterpiece, Inception. We'll dig into its intricate plot, those signature filmmaking techniques, and maybe some of the philosophical questions that kind of define his unique vision. So get ready, because we're about to explore dreams within dreams and a lot more. Okay, let's unpack Inception. It's what, nearly 2.5 hours?
Yeah, a long one.
A compelling mystery action film that, it demands your full attention.
It really does.
And that's precisely what the ensemble cast delivers. You've got Leonardo DiCaprio leading, Ken Watanabe, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marion Cotillard, Elliot Page, Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, Michael Caine. Quite the lineup.
Stellar cast. And one source we looked at gave it a 4.8 out of 5 stars, which is pretty telling. Audiences clearly felt that investment paid off.
Right.
And what's really compelling, I think, is how it immediately sets up the core conflict with that quote from Saito.
Yes.
So, do you want to take a leap of faith or become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone?
Mm-hmm.
That one line just perfectly encapsulates Cobb's motivation, the stakes. It drives everything.
It totally sets the tone. So the plot basically revolves around Dom Cobb. He's a professional thief, right?
An extractor.
An extractor, yeah. Steals information by infiltrating people's subconscious minds through their dreams, but he's also an international fugitive.
Right. Framed for his wife's murder.
And he's desperate, just desperate to get back home to his children in the U.S.
And that's where Saito comes in. He's impressed by Cobb's skill, especially orchestrating multiple dream levels, that whole dreams within dreams thing.
Yeah.
So he offers him a way home, a chance to clear his name. But there's a catch.
Always a catch.
Instead of extraction stealing an idea, Cobb has to perform Inception on this business competitor, Robert Fisher.
Planting an idea.
Exactly. Planting it so subtly, so deeply, that Fisher believes it's his own idea. If they pull it off, Saito calls it the perfect crime, and Cobb gets his ticket home.
Okay, so talking strengths. Inception is, it's widely praised for its cinematography. It aims for those naturalistic camera techniques, really precise shots, seamless transitions.
Yeah.
The film just weaves together the visual artistry, the effects, the strong writing. It crafts this incredibly immersive story.
Definitely. And you feel that emotional core, don't you? Cobb's deep desire to reunite with his kids.
Yeah, you really do. And there's also that strong camaraderie among the team members, Ariadne, Eames, Arthur, Yusuf. They genuinely look out for each other, protect each other. They're a tight unit.
But on the other side, some, let's call them negative elements, have been pointed out.
Okay.
The nonlinear storytelling right at the beginning, while it makes sense later, it can be maybe a bit hard to follow initially for some viewers.
Yeah, gotta stick with it.
Yeah. And it's probably worth noting, especially if you're thinking about younger audiences, there's a fair amount of gunfire, some violence, and pretty heavy language, too.
That kind of raises the question of moral ambiguity, doesn't it? Cobb and his team are fundamentally committing a very sophisticated crime.
Yep.
Even if Cobb's motivation is understandable, getting back to his kids and their client, Saito, he's clearly driven by selfish gain, just wanting to sabotage a rival.
Absolutely.
And Cobb himself, he's not entirely honest with his own team, is he? He downplays dangers, hides his own psychological issues. As a viewer, do you find yourself rooting for him despite all that? Or does that gray area create tension?
That's a great point. It definitely creates this fascinating internal conflict for the viewer. You're drawn to Cobb's desperation, that relatable human desire to see his children.
Yeah.
But then you're constantly reminded of the ethical lines being crossed. It forces you to engage more deeply, questioning not just what they're doing, but why. Do the ends justify the means here?
Right.
And that's, that's classic Nolan, isn't it? Exploring characters operating in these really complex moral spaces.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, Christopher Nolan's filmmaking blueprint, what really stands out about his signature style, maybe let's start with his narrative architecture, that fascination with time and memory.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look across his films, it's such a clear pattern,
Yeah.
right? From early stuff like Following, which intercuts, what, 3 timelines?
Three, yeah.
Then Memento, famously moving backward and forward. The Prestige, 4 timelines, intercutting 3. In
Hmm.
Inception itself, you've got 4 distinct timelines being intercut, all framed by a fifth one. This deliberate, unconventional structure. It's undeniably his hallmark.
And this is where it gets really cool technically. He often uses something from music, the shepherd tone, in his cross-cutting. Can you kind of explain how that works
But
visually?
it's brilliant. A shepherd tone
Yeah.
in music, it gives you this auditory illusion, right? A
Mm.
pitch that seems to constantly rise or fall, but never actually leaves a certain range.
Okay.
Nolan applies that principle visually
Hmm.
when he cuts between different plot lines or timelines. So one story might be peaking,
Right.
another's building intensity, a third is just kicking off. And it creates this continuous feeling of rising tension, this relentless momentum that keeps you hooked, even as you're jumping between scenes. He used it incredibly effectively in Dunkirk, for instance.
That makes so much sense for that sort of propulsive feel his movies have. And Nolan's philosophy on engaging the audience, he's pretty clear, isn't he? He wants to be a little bit ahead of you.
Right. A careful balance.
Not so far ahead you're lost and frustrated, but not so far behind that it's predictable. It's all about creating mystery, not giving everything away up front.
And he thinks that works particularly well now, in the age of home video, streaming. People can rewind, rewatch, catch those details they missed.
Makes sense.
Now, shifting to his visual approach, he's famous for minimizing CGI, right? Preferring practical effects whenever he possibly can.
Yeah, hugely.
His reasoning seems to be that CGI, no matter how sophisticated it gets, it just feels a bit safe, more like animation. He feels it struggles to convey genuine threat or that tactile reality,
Yeah.
especially in films aiming for a grounded feel.
Like Inception only had around 500 visual effects shots.
Exactly, which is tiny compared to other blockbusters that might have, 1,500, 2,000 VFX shots or more.
And a huge part of translating that practical vision comes down to his collaboration with cinematographer Wally Pfister, certainly on Inception.
Oh, absolutely.
Pfister created those unique visual looks for each dream layer, didn't he? To help us distinguish the plot lines, keep track of the levels.
Yeah, totally. You see it clearly. The casual jackets on the rainy streets, then the sharp business suits in the hotel level, the snow gear up on the mountain.
Right, and then wet and messy in that final desolate limbo space.
Exactly. Those visual cues are essential for navigating those nested dreams.
And Pfister's technical choices. He shoots exclusively on film, right? 35 millimeters and IMAX.
Yep. He emphasizes its physical depth of layers, how it handles contrast and color saturation. He uses specific anamorphic lenses, Panavision Primos, E and C series, and Panaflex cameras. That's crucial for that signature cinematic look.
That wide stretched image, the distinct bokeh.
Yeah, gives it that tangible, almost hyper-real quality, especially blown up on a big screen. And Nolan, he prefers shooting with a single camera unit, mostly.
To maintain his point of view.
Exactly. Keep that precise control. He'll use multi-camera for stunts, obviously, but single camera for the dramatic action. And he famously avoids zoom lenses.
Right. He physically moves the camera closer.
Yeah, to get in your space, as he puts it, for that more intimate, subjective feel.
This meticulousness, it carries right through into the thematic depth of his work, too. His films are so often centered on these big metaphysical themes, time, memory, personal identity.
They get called epistemological thrillers sometimes,
Meaning?
meaning they focus not just on the nature of reality itself, but more on the nature of knowledge. What can we actually know for sure? What are the limits of our knowing?
And that ties straight back into Inception's core theme, doesn't it? That idea of belief, or the leap of faith.
Absolutely. It's shown as essential for the characters. They have to invest in their subjective reality, their dream, to overcome those epistemological limitations, those doubts.
And the ending, that spinning top, the totem.
Classic. Leaves you hanging,
Yeah.
questioning what's real, what Cobb chooses to accept as real. It's all about that leap.
You also notice his characters are often, well, pretty troubled. Obsessive, morally ambiguous.
Definitely grappling with things like loneliness, guilt, jealousy, greed.
Yeah. But Nolan uses this heightened reality, these sci-fi or thriller frameworks, to make these very human neuroses feel relatable, almost universal. He takes everyday struggles and just blows them up onto this huge canvas.
And while his films sometimes touch on broader societal issues,
Yeah.
Corruption, surveillance, maybe in the Dark Knight trilogy,
Sure.
Nolan himself has been pretty clear that They're not meant as political statements. He seems more interested in the human condition within those heightened scenarios.
Right.
His work also digs deep into trauma, doesn't it? How it functions, how it's presented. The complexity, the fractured nature of his narratives often seems to mimic how trauma actually works psychologically.
And these themes, these techniques, they aren't just in Inception, they echo throughout his whole career. Which brings us to his impact and legacy. It's been quite a trajectory, hasn't it?
Remarkable, yeah. From early shorts like Larceny and Doodlebug, then getting international notice with Memento back in 2000,
Right, that really put him on the map.
then Somnia, then the blockbusters,
Hmm.
the Dark Knight trilogy, The Prestige, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, and of course Oppenheimer.
Which finally got him those big Academy Awards, Best Director, Best Picture.
Well deserved. And now he's got The Odyssey coming up, apparently set to be his most expensive film yet, and the first big blockbuster shot entirely on IMAX film.
Wow. And that consistency you mentioned earlier is partly down to his recurring collaborators, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. His wife, Emma Thomas, has produced literally all his films. His brother, Jonathan, co-wrote several key ones. You've got Hans Zimmer's iconic scores,
Lee Smith's editing.
Wally Feister, and now Hoyt van Hoytema behind the camera. These are crucial partnerships. And actors like Michael Caine showing up again and again. He was in 8 films.
That creates a real shorthand, I imagine. Beyond the films themselves, Nolan's also a huge advocate for film preservation. He serves on boards like the Film Foundation.
Yeah, and the National Film Preservation Board. He was instrumental, apparently, in lobbying Hollywood studios to keep funding Kodak, to keep producing actual film stock.
Because he sees shooting on film as a vital artistic choice.
Exactly. And that advocacy extends to the viewing experience, too. He's a massive champion of seeing films in theaters.
Famously argued against those simultaneous theatrical and streaming releases, like his disagreement with Warner Bros. Over HBO Max.
Yeah, he believes physical media is still king for long-term preservation, making sure these works last beyond, the whims of streaming platforms.
And critics. Mostly, they love him, right? He gets called an art house auteur,
Yeah.
making these incredibly ambitious blockbusters.
Yeah, praised for blending spectacle with intellectual complexity, for tackling big ideas. He's seen as a persuasively inventive storyteller. Definitely one of the most accomplished filmmakers working today.
But he's not totally immune to criticism. There's that occasional term, Nolan clunkiness.
Right. Sometimes remarks about pacing or how the editing might underemphasize or maybe overemphasize certain plot points or information, making the viewing experience feel a bit strenuous for some, maybe a little too deliberate at times.
Interesting. Like how Dunkirk really leaned into physical storytelling, collective experience over deep individual character arcs. Some criticized that initially.
Yeah, but you can also see it as a thematic progression, a deliberate choice for that specific story. And then Oppenheimer felt like a real culmination, didn't it?
Totally.
Blending that huge blockbuster scale with the tension of a historical biopic, exploring those incredibly complex historical contradictions so effectively.
And bringing us right up to date. He's even weighed in on AI, calling this their Oppenheimer moment for AI researchers.
Yeah, drawing that parallel as they grapple with unleashing this powerful new technology and, its potential unintended consequences.
What's his take on it, artistically?
Well, he sees it as a powerful tool, potentially. But he firmly believes there's no replacing human creativity, because fundamentally, AI models learn from past human creativity. They're derivative in that sense.
Right.
And he brings it back to his own choices, like not using CGI for the Trinity test in Oppenheimer. He said, again, it was an artistic choice. CGI feels a little safe, like animation. It struggles to convey real threat compared to practical effects.
So he doesn't think AI inherently takes away the substance of art.
No, he seems to see it more as potentially another tool for filmmakers to create with.
It really is fascinating how Nolan consistently weaves these complex ideas, these signature techniques, across his entire filmography. From Memento's reverse structure to Inception's nested dreams, right up to Oppenheimer's historical scope.
Mm-hmm. He really invites you, requires you almost, to lean in and engage with his films on a much deeper level than just surface plot.
Absolutely. And you can really see how Inception, with all its layers of subjective reality and that central leap of faith, how pivotal that film was. It just embodies so many of the themes and stylistic choices he's known for.
And what's really interesting is Nolan himself says his films aren't necessarily meant to be understood in a purely linear, logical way, but felt. He actively embraces
He
mystery.
wants you to experience it, not just dissect it.
Exactly.
So, I guess, what does this all mean for us, the viewers? If Nolan's movies like Inception keep making us question that line between reality and the beliefs we construct, and they emphasize the power of taking a leap of faith when faced with uncertainty, what does that suggest about how we navigate our own complex world? A world where our subjective realities are constantly being shaped by, well, everything around us. And maybe how much does our own willingness to take that leap of faith, to believe in something, actually determine the outcomes we experience?
Hmm. That's definitely something to ponder.
Something to ponder until our next deep dive.